We continue our test with the Freeride high-performance kites and Bigair kites with the Harlem Peak, a 5-strutter, which we tested in 9 and 12. The very slim front tube is supported by a 7-point bridle with a pulley. The steering line sits on a medium-wide V at the tip, which spreads the range of the steering here in this area. Bar pressure and turning speed variations are not provided for here at this time. This kite, like the Thrive model from Harlem, was also developed in cooperation with Brainchild. There is a separate valve for releasing the air. The one-pump system is kept very short and straight. Here too, Brainchild's technique was used to weld the front tube material in the individual segments and then cover it with an additional webbing. The whole thing is sealed here with a Cada seam. The 5 transverse struts do not require a line deflector, thanks to the short and very thin scale selected from the materials. There is only a line deflector at the end of the front tube. The flying cloth is very light and very strong. Along the entire trailing edge, the fabric strip is wider and made from a triple ripstop material, which is also highly durable. To prevent the trailing edge from fluttering at high flight speeds, 3 battens are installed on each side to reduce this effect. These battens are almost half open in their pockets for easy replacement, but also to keep the weight as low as possible. At the transition from the front tube to the canopy, a narrow fabric reinforcement has been added here. All cross struts are each attached to the canopy with a single seam and are reinforced and glued from the inside. The construction here was focused on keeping the weight low. Overall, this kite is very well crafted. According to the manufacturer, this kite is ideally suited for professionals as well as for intermediate riders who are enthusiastic about jumping. Of course, it's always important that it gets going early. Compared to all competitors in this 5-strut high-performance range, it delivers very good planing performance. Based on a really immediate and perfect flow and a very evenly high ground pull, which is absolutely efficient even in lower wind speeds. On an upwind course, the kite sits very far at the edge of the wind window and delivers constant steady drive without the need for any correction. The bar feeling with the peak is absolutely precise, and with the perfectly optimal feedback from the kite about its position in the wind window, you get a very controlled sensation. All of this is accompanied by medium bar pressure, which is actually a bit higher than what you might be used to from previous Harlem kites, but it all fits together very well. As mentioned, the basic pull is very consistent and strong, making the Harlem Peak appear powerful throughout, but not by generating lateral forces. Instead, its power is always directed forward, meaning it's designed for propulsion. The way the power develops also matches the overall tuning. There's a really exceptionally high progressive peak, which steadily increases in a consistent manner until, at the end, the absolute true peak is reached as a result of the high flight speed. This is easy to control even for those who aren't very experienced yet. Let's take a look at its overall flight characteristics. These are defined by a very high flight speed along with an equally impressive agility in turning, most noticeable in kite loops. The turning radius isn't quite as tight as with the Thrive from Harlem. However, thanks to the slightly higher bar pressure, These loops are actually a bit easier to control for anyone looking to practice them. This is of course because the Harlem Peak turns smoothly and consistently, always maintaining a steady forward drive and a uniform feel on the bar. The D-power capability of the Harlem Peak is excellent. This is partly due to the really long D-power line on the bar setup, which was specifically developed for this purpose. This allows you to reduce the power very quickly, efficiently, and above all, smoothly. It's all a bit like a linear gas pedal. And when it comes to profile stability, the Peak really doesn't show any weakness here. This 5-strut kite shows no movement in light wind, strong wind, during turns, or at high flight speeds. Everything always remains absolutely calm. Even during unhooked freestyle, feel the homogeneity of Harlem Peak. There's always enough pop available simply because it's a powerful kite. But when it comes to slack, you do notice that there are other areas of use where it's better suited. Because here it just keeps pulling continuously. The real forte of the Harlem Peak is hooked in jumping and all the modern freestyle tricks of today. And at first we were naturally a bit skeptical because Harlem had already set the bar high with the Thrive, which is a really refined technical kite that handles all these new school maneuvers perfectly. But the company probably also thought that we need something a bit more user-friendly, that also works a bit more via sheet and go. And that's exactly what happened. So the Peak can definitely do both. On the one hand, it has a sheet and go, so you can easily take off here just by tightening the bar. The takeoff is very simple because you don't have any lateral forces before the takeoff, but the kite is simply a bit further forward, actually wants to provide propulsion and then combines the whole thing with its flying speed. As a result, even for beginners at jumping, this kite is very easy to jump with and immediately produces a real maximum of performance. For those who are really skilled, who can edge cleanly and make use of the speed the kite provides, they can actually reach exactly the same heights as the truly very best kites that are known in this category. In terms of its shape, we have more of a rounded C shape, but of course with a significant amount of elongation. This results in a very, very nice, long and enduring hang time, especially in the inactive phase, that is, when you're not steering or moving the kite during flight. It simply stays in the air noticeably longer than a Thrive or even longer than an Evo D-Lap. On the other hand, you can also move it very quickly because it is so responsive and precise in steering, instantly converting every steering input into forward drive and flight speed. Accordingly, this kite really lets you get the best of both worlds. It's about the best we've had in our hands so far. To wrap up, here are a few more details that really make it special. You can fly it extremely far behind you after a kite jump, and thanks to its high flight speed and responsive handling, you can easily steer it back to the front. It catches the rider very early and reliably, ensuring a totally smooth landing. The entire flight behavior is characterized by truly high performance planing ability. Upwind performance heats absolutely top notch. This will appeal to anyone who wants a bit more from their kite surfing, not just leisurely cruising across the lake, but with a touch of sportiness on their wish list. from beginners all the way to professionals. Every skill level can be very well satisfied here. What's also fascinating is that these qualities we've just described can be accessed across a very wide wind range. In other words, even for kite foiling or big air kite foiling, it is absolutely justified. The low weight and the perfectly smooth airflow ensure an exceptionally early usable wind range. When kite foiling, we also have wind speeds below 10 knots, and in terms of performance, things are already almost getting started here. Of course, you have to keep in mind that the water start characteristics of a 5-strutter are always a bit slower. We don't have any footage for you here, but you definitely need at least 10 to 12 knots for a smooth water start in deep water. And finally, of course, there's the price. This truly very, very fine piece, which will bring a lot of joy to anyone who loves jumping, will require you to have at least two 484 euros in your pocket for the 12 square meter version.